I haven't spoken to him in a minute. My
Yeah.
first time in the chat, you were here.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Welcome back.
Right.
Thanks.
Hello, stream. Yes, it's community meeting. We are reviewing two proposals today. So we've got a generic maths revision that we'll be reviewing, and then a sort of I say last minute, it was opened weeks ago now, but a proposal on ABI compatibility, which I will discuss more when we get to it. But first of all, it's been a while since we've done a coffee and code. So I guess we can we can fold the figuring out what we're all working on and today, I guess. So for me, I have been doing some upstream work in OpenAL soft, so to make a XML specification for OpenAL, so we can reuse all the goodness that we have for OpenGL. It's basically make it feel like a Kronos library, which is slow work, really dull work, but it's it makes the bindings a lot nicer and it feels like it's necessary. So I'm slowly chugging through that. But yeah, because
that sounds awesome.
Yeah, no, it'll be good when it's done. Because it means we'll have all. Because right now I've got OpenAL bindings generating, but they're literally just functions and a bunch of macro constants. Like there's no like strongly typed enums or anything. Whereas we had that in 2.0, well, in 1.0 even. So it'll be good to get that back in 3.0. And I figured the best way to do that is to make the XML specification and reuse everything we already have for Kronos libraries. So yeah, because OpenAL bindings are one of the two things that, as per our tracker, are the must-haves for preview 1. Sorry, the other being input. So that leads me nicely onto Dom.
Hi. Yeah, I've been working on input stuff, basically largely just the foundation of input for Silk 3. Mostly the translation, I guess, of SDL into our input spec. Yeah, it's been taking a while. It is making good progress. I'm currently working on keyboard implementation and whatnot. I got gamepads and joysticks in a place where I feel like it's at least there. Testing will come later once I'm in a proper compilable state. But all in all, slow and steady progress, feeling good. But it is complicated, turns out.
Yeah, yeah. I obviously had an initial swing at it, and it does kind of keep going. I think the things that will be really interesting are like pens and the pointers stuff. Like we've never really done that sort of abstraction before, especially with pens.
I'm saving that for last.
Yeah, it makes sense. I don't blame you in the slightest. So yeah, one of the things I forgot to mention that I was doing as well is that today I started looking at releasing a 2.23. It's not going to be anything exciting, just a bindings regeneration and some dependency updates, but we had a request from Stride come in because their security tooling is moaning at them because we've got some outdated dependencies that have some vulnerabilities apparently. So it's been a while since we've updated, so I figured, what the hell. Yeah. So I guess that leads us on to, hang on, I need to remind myself of you. Okay, streamer mode is enabled. That leads us on to O.
Oh, yeah. Otacon. You can call me John or Otacon, that's fine. Either way.
All right.
Yeah, so I haven't been, contributing too much in the last, month and a half now because, I mean, I got most of the code generation done for the math stuff up to the point where, like, we kind of need to discuss the proposal to refactor it the way I have. So, just kind of, I've been working on, my own things. So, doing some robotics.
Nice. Love robotics. Awesome. Cool. Kai, I know you haven't done anything sort of that related, but you've decided to reappear all of a sudden. So, what have you been up to, non-Silk?
Yeah, I have not done much relevant at all. I'm so far away from Silk right now, unfortunately. But yeah, just here to see what you guys are doing, I guess. And yeah, I mean, math still feels a bit like my baby, so I'm like, I want to see what you're doing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess we can go on to the first proposal. Let me just open it up. Um, yeah, so we sort of had a little bit of a rethink of maths in 3.0. It's nothing too exciting. I mean, it's still keeping the same. Like, oh, it's generic. It's got all these. I mean, the API will feel basically the same to a user. That is the goal. Um, but um, but yeah, we're making some changes. But now that generic maths is a thing that exists, and we don't need to have that horrible scalar class. Um, so we've had an approved maths proposal already that we previously discussed. When was that actually? Um, Let me scroll to the bottom. 2023. It's been kicking around for a while. But we've got some revisions to um, try and make it a bit nicer. Now that generic math is a bigger thing, and also to try and make it more usable, which I guess John will, if you don't mind talking about. I don't want to steal your thunder. Let me just share my screen as well.
Sure. Yeah. Let me see if I can see your screen share. Where are you sharing?
I will be sharing in the channel. Well, my default settings are no longer working now, as I don't have Nitro anymore. Um,
Ah,
oh, and macOS is terrible at screen sharing. Amazing. One moment, please. Share this window. Is this going to explode things? All right. Hopefully, you can see my screen.
2 seconds. Yes.
Excellent. Take it away.
So yeah, the main changes to this proposal from where it was is in the approved proposal, there was mention of a independent type hierarchy, and this was for sort of segregating between integer and floating point implementations. I'm not exactly sure I ever understood the real motivation behind it. The uh, it's simple enough to implement two type hierarchies, especially with a code generator. And initially, I started doing that, or moving things. The code generator approach has been useful, and it helped find us a couple of bugs in version 2.0, which we backported. Sorry, we didn't backport the bugs, backported fixes. Um, but yeah, like I said, the main deviation is that in the updated proposal, I've removed that distinction. And so where it had said, vector ni and vector nf, where n is, a number from 2 to 5, I pretty much collapsed that into vector nd, like we used to have. And so the way that can be implemented in a way that I think that the original motivation was so that we would have the correct methods and so on light up on those types. So, for example, like you wouldn't have a length if for vectors if you don't have like floating point operations. And so the way that we can sort of still get the best of both worlds is with extension properties. And if we can use extension properties, I think we can get quite an ergonomic API. And by that I mean basically source compatible with the old one. Without obviously we'll lose the scalar class, so anybody using that will just have to use their data types. I doubt anybody was using that except for as an implementation detail of the math library. Maybe they were, but it'll be pretty trivial to move off of it. So with the extension properties and methods, yeah, I think for example, defining length and length squared, or length squared on anything, and length based on if they have root functions, root functions defined in their type of t. So yep, so mostly the deviations are around that. I did some cleanup here to make sure. I guess if maybe I should share my screen or else if you want to see the diff, show the diff on this.
Yeah, so I've got the rich diff on at the moment.
I see.
Which
I see.
I mean,
Perfect. Got it.
yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. So yeah, I did some cleanup in here to just clarify whether for all these extension methods that we're going to create that are going to come in from basically the vector type will inherit things like min and max from the underlying interfaces, like iNumbers, min and max. So I clarified where those types are coming from. If you scroll down a little further, there was a big list, I believe. Yeah, so here, in this list here, I clarified so whether, it was basically the multiplicity of the arguments as well. So where the source implementation should come from and the multiplicity of the arguments. But largely, that's the change, is changing it to a single type hierarchy that is mostly source compatible with the old library.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess to provide a bit of history then on the two type hierarchies, it basically came from the fact that we didn't want to consider so still in 2.0 we've got the problem where every single API is available for every single vector, every single type, with even if it really doesn't make sense. So like you had length on like a vector of bytes, for instance, which would never work, and it was there was no like casting up to a float, doing the floating point API and calculation and then moving it back down to byte in that example. It would just do all the calculations in terms of bytes, which is usually not what you want for something like length. And at the same time, we didn't want to do the upcasting, downcasting, because that's really silent. That's loads of extra work that is just happening silently. So in 3.0, we kind of wanted to get rid of the APIs that don't make sense for a given T. The way that we did that is to distinguish between I guess a vector of numbers in the sense of it's 4 numbers in a single struct or whatever, like a vector as in how C++ calls it, I guess, versus a Euclidean vector, which would assume to be floating point. And yeah, so that's where the two type hierarchies came from. But then I sort of realized as we were having the discussions when you wanted to contribute towards the 3.0 maths thing, is that now that C# has wonderful extension APIs, like extension properties, and it's just generally a lot better. We can start to move that distinguishing between a Euclidean vector and a non-Euclidean vector, for example, down to the individual API level. So that you don't have those two type hierarchies. So that's sort of where it came from. I know, well, Tanner's not here, but I know he still massively objects to the idea of having having a sort of non-floating point vector, because a vector means a Euclidean vector. And we've gone around that a number of times in the formation of this proposal.
There's a built-in vector class in system numerics if you want to represent just an arbitrary collection of numbers that's non-Euclidean.
So in system.numerics it is always floating point. In fact it's specifically single precision floating point. But sure. when Tanner, because I did work with Tanner on forming the generic vectors upstream in .NET and stuff, because that's the area of the BCL that Tanner owns. Along with other areas. So it's like any changes to those APIs go through him. And I was working with him before generic math at a language level existed.
There's a system numerics vector of T as
right.
well.
So that is slightly different. That is a SIMD vector.
Right.
So it is literally just a pack. Yeah, exactly. A pack of numbers that fits into a certain operating system. Not operating system. Instruction set architecture specific length. So like it's basically meant to be what system.runtime.intrinsics was, but it's like in 2.0 we called this BTEC intrinsics, which basically only makes sense if you're in the UK and are familiar with the rivalry between a BTEC qualification and an A-level qualification. But basically it's basically intrinsics before they before they really before the API was as good as it was today. So the system.runtime.intrinsics APIs are sort of like the next evolution of what that vector of t was in system.numerics. The system.numerics types that I'm referring to is I like vector 2, vector 3, vector 4.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But those are more like, those tend to have the contract of being Euclidean. The vector 2, 3, and 4.
Yes. Yeah, which is
Sort of,
exactly my point. And just represent Tanner because he's not here unless he's turned up and I can't see because I haven't got the window open at the moment. I assume he hasn't. But to represent his argument was that we just shouldn't have a non-Euclidean vector because a vector is by definition Euclidean. And the argument from the Silk.net perspective was that having non-floating point vectors is very useful for interop, and we are primarily an interop library, so we did want non-floating point vectors. So yeah, because the language wasn't as advanced as it was at the time, that was two type hierarchies. Whereas now that we've got extension properties and better extension methods where we can define these APIs at a better granularity and have them just light up if they are relevant, we can go down. We can collapse it back to a single type hierarchy and hopefully make the experience a lot nicer.
Yep. So I'm not sure if they're like, do we want to like, how does voting on this go, or like do we like leave it open to the community to?
So basically, it's the usual way we do it. So there's a baseline assumption that that you've read at least some of the proposal before you come into these meetings. But then the main purpose of these meetings is just to argue about API shape, the granular details of it. They don't necessarily have to be resolved in this forum. It's basically just that if these meetings are meant to be like are we completely going off in the wrong direction checkpoint. Because we've had this in the past, and the main goal that we have here is that anyone can pick up an approved proposal and implement it. Yeah.
Can
I try to respect. Go ahead.
Sorry. Just saying, I really love this. I just want to quickly highlight one point because I don't think either of you mentioned it. This update also contains that the vector methods will be exposed on the instances as well. I don't know if there has been some preliminary discussion there and you all agree. Personally, I would be against this, but just want to highlight it because, yeah, it's all the way at the top under design decisions. There's like a new section now.
Okay. So yeah. So this is basically. So I guess for this sort of thing, we could go down to the individual API granularity and figure out what makes sense to be invocable as an instance or not. But basically, this did come from me in the sense that if we've got that static method already and it's we can just make the first argument collapse into an instance method. They are not instance methods in the sense that they are on that struct directly. It is still an extension method, but yeah, it is it as in it's still a static method. Just with that first parameter as of this. So
like you're saying, if we want, we could go and be a little bit more discerning, I guess would be the right word, on which methods are marked with this on the first argument. For example, like, does max make a lot of sense? I don't know, like as an extension method, but other than that, it's largely, it's basically for free.
I don't know. In my mind, none of them make sense as an extension method. But basically, my more my argument would be that I always really liked mass to be very similar to the sort of official mass library, right? And they don't have this. So in my mind, it would make, if we really want this, I would personally say, why don't we try to get it into kind of the official library and then we can just follow it, in my mind. But yeah, of course, if you say you feel strongly about this, I'm interested why. But yeah.
So I had said that I support it for operators that typically show up as an infix operator. So you can see here, like dot tends to be an infix operator, and so a dot b reads to me in a way that people would be comfortable with. That was the main one. Like I would say, mainly anything that shows up as an infix operator would be the one that I think would be the ones that I think would qualify. But yeah, I believe this was I think I effectively settled for this based on the conversation we had in the team chat.
Yeah, absolutely. This is something that has come from me. Yeah, it's no secret that I've been using Rust for a while, and they have a like number.min and whatever. We can use static methods if we'd like, but and stay true to it.
There's nothing stopping people from just using the static methods as static methods. If they prefer that style, then they can still do that.
Yeah, this is exactly what I'm thinking, because that it does give you that choice. I'm just trying to think of other things, because it can be useful because it is less button presses. So it's entirely a stylistic choice. I guess if there are any APIs here where it just fundamentally does not make sense to it's not obvious which parameter is this parameter, for instance, then we should probably not have that as an instance thing. But yeah, I mean we can do it by consensus, really. I don't feel that strongly about it. It just feels like a nice stylistic choice, and ultimately Silk.net has always been about how do you want to write your code, and we will enable you to do that. I suppose the nice thing with the instance operators, and the main reason why the main reason why I thought it was more than just a nice idea, was that you can have that sort of like method chaining without having to repeat vector 3D every single time. Which I found nice in other libraries, but again, I don't feel overly strongly about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel that strongly about it either. I just wanted to see what your opinion is, basically. In my mind, not having it is better, simply because math rules, basically. So I think in like math code, the method chaining is very ugly, and this kind of pushes you to do this. But yeah, I don't feel that strongly about it either, so I'm happy to leave it if you think this has value. So clearly you do, so I'm also happy to just leave it. I just wanted to see whether this is like an oversight or no.
I mean, the good thing is that we can always add this back without breaking anything. So we could remove it, but at the same time, I really don't know. I'm not prepared to kill anyone upon this hill.
Yeah, me neither.
So we want to remove it for now and add it later if we want it.
Yeah, it does seem like the prevailing sentiment.
Sounds good.
And I don't think that changes any of the rest of the words in the proposal. I think it's literally just that line. So hopefully that's an easy fix. We will remove instance instruction and add them back later if we still want them. Right. Okay. Right. Where do we get to? We got to the individual APIs. Define the following. Okay. Yeah. But back over to you, John.
I tried to keep everything. I tried to stay respectful of the original proposal. I didn't try to make large changes. I just tried to clean it up, and I may have made a mistake here or there. Maybe I tried, like I said, to do it properly. So mostly just a cleanup and reorganization of what the original proposal had proposed with the changes that we've already mentioned. So.
So Kai, I guess a little thought experiment on this line of thinking. So in 2.0 we've got length and length squared as properties. In 3.0 we've kept that in that we're using extension properties now. How do you feel about that?
I vaguely remember having a discussion about this before.
Yeah, I think I'd imagine this is the sort of thing we'd have discussed at length. I just don't remember what
Yeah.
our respective opinions were.
I honestly don't remember either. I think either is fine at this point. I think at one point, I think the main argument for having the properties is basically it's not really like it's only technically something you calculate, and like mathematically speaking, it's a property of the thing, right? While like all the other things are calculations. I don't know. Like makes no sense in my mind, but yeah. So for me, either is fine. I don't really care.
Yeah, fair enough. That sort of makes sense. Yeah. But yeah, I suppose we'd sort of be trying to reverse engineer our own thinking at this point. It's been a
I
while.
mean,
So is
I
go
understand
ahead.
the case for and against. I think just as someone who is not strictly a mathematician, but engages with math and code, especially when performance is of concern, it's nice for operations to be transparent so then I could be mindful of that. I mean, I think something like length in particular, like it's easy to presume that, okay, there's a calculation here. There are three floats in this vector. There are no hidden fields. There's nothing crazy going on. But I do know that I don't mind a couple of parentheses for the sake of like clarity on what the PC is actually doing.
So is the concern whether we make it a property or whether we make it a method? Is that the concern?
Yeah, I was mainly just trying to figure out, trying to understand where the room draws a line on whether things are like instance based or whether it's a static method or whether it's an instance method. And yeah, because this is something that I don't feel strongly about. In fact, I'm on team. I'm on team property because I think it looks nicer, but for no other reason. Like I don't have like um any scientific reason for preferring that.
I think basically this kind of discussion is why we eventually ended up not discussing all of this anymore and just defer to whatever like the system mass did. And I think they also have a property because they also, I remember watching some of their like discussions and they also had a lot of discussion. And then we kind of had the same discussion again and it was super confusing. And yeah, so in my mind, the easy thing is always to just defer to whatever they did, basically. And they have it as a method. Well, shit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they have a method.
Yeah.
I'm surprised by that. I think a lot of the 2.0 math was very much inspired by essentially we all wanted to take OpenTK maths and make it generic and make it silkier, I guess, because it's sort of carrying on that sort of same lineage that the rest of Silk.net had followed at this point. Obviously, this is completely greenfield in 3.0, so we can choose to align ourselves more with system.numerics, and they have a method. Yeah, I didn't realize they had a method.
I think I remember that we also had Tanner in these discussions a bunch, and then sometimes we also got to the conclusion that they have it one way, and then Tanner was like, "Oh, this was a mistake." So maybe ask him, but we can also just, I mean, yeah, either way for me is fine. But yeah, I always try to just defer to whatever the expert said, basically.
Yeah. Okay. I guess I'll have to look at that. But I mean, does anyone in the room? I can try. I can try and reverse engineer like what we were thinking, I say reverse engineer. Try to find the messages from back then, if possible.
Yeah.
Like,
So that's not a change I'm making in this proposal. The original proposal had them both
oh
link
yeah,
and link
yeah,
squared
yeah.
as
No, I know.
property.
It's literally just because of Kai's comment that I thought I'd bring it up.
I'm pretty sure that we also literally threw a coin more than once. So yeah, good luck. I think
That's awesome.
if you care, do something, like change it. I don't think anyone will mind. If you don't care, then just leave it as whatever it is right now. So yeah, that's I think my kind of practical opinion.
Actually, yeah. Do we want to align ourselves with 2.0 here, or do we want to align ourselves with system.numerics? I guess given that none of us feel so strongly that we're about to die on a hill, then yeah, it's that question, I guess.
I think that the transferability of knowledge between system.numerics and this is like very valuable, but I also think that this isn't exactly the turning point for that transferability. Especially if this is the only like extension property defined of like note here. So yeah, I'm totally not sweating it.
Yeah, I've also found a message from Tanner when Maxine was discussing the original generic maths proposal. Maxine sadly couldn't make it to this meeting, but originally planned to. But I found a comment from Tanner that said, "Shouldn't length be a property here?" So there you go.
Yeah,
That's
this is
very
basically
funny.
what I mean. I mean, you can ping him and then find out after years of having this in system, what he thinks now.
Yep, and yeah, I found a commit as well that is explicitly titled "length squared to properties." So we made a decision at some point. Um,
Yeah,
I
okay.
I guess we can trust ourselves that it is that decision was grounded in scientific reasoning and go ahead and reuse that decision.
It has been spoken.
Excellent. Right, that ends that. Um, unless we think that 16-year-old and 16-year-old Kai and Dylan were smoking something, which is
Only you
entirely a
could tell us
possibility.
that.
No, I wouldn't
I
do
mean,
that. I'm a
it's
good boy.
yeah. Aren't we all? Aren't we all? Uh, yeah, I don't know. This seems like a hill not worth dying on.
I
Like
agree.
anyone using it's gonna be aware that oh, it's doing a calculation here. It's not really clarity. The only argument I could see against that like really holds any kind of weight is just do we want to make it, I guess, .NET 9 compatible, right? Do we care?
Uh, yeah. I mean, Silk.net math has always intentionally been quite different to system.numerics in the sense that we've tried to well, we tried to make it a better experience for writing the sort of code that Silk.net is used for, and also to try and fill in the gaps left by system.numerics. This happens to be a case where we've deviated from system.numerics without any obvious like unique value add. Um, but I guess my main point in illustrating this is that uh, we haven't just been following system.numerics and sticking to what they implement and just make it for more types. It's that we do want to, we have tried to be more than that. And so our priorities have always been those two things before following system.numerics. Um, those two priorities don't apply here because again it's such an inconsequential thing, but clearly we decided like that they are properties at some point.
Does this proposal utilize any other like .NET 10 specific functionality, or is this literally the only one?
Um, well, so the length method in system.numerics has existed since .NET Standard 2.0. So
Well, yeah, but I mean less against the comparison between .NET Standard, but just the fact that like the concept of an extension property does not exist prior to .NET 10, right? And so this is, I mean, while we're targeting obviously .NET 10, it it becomes fundamentally incompatible with lower versions for anyone who might want to use it, right? Like we can't
yeah,
say that this can be compiled in a .NET 9 project, basically, as far as I can see, because of this length property. That could be worth doing because, say, 5 years from now, we just have a slightly nicer API, um, and it's .NET 10 and up, like that's fine, right?
mm.
The world is catching up. We don't have to care quite as much about like net standard compatibility. But to me, that's like the real decision being made with respect to this extension property.
Yeah, I am happy with that decision, primarily because it's always been the intention that a major version at the time of its release targets the latest LTS. It
Okay.
ideally exclusively. That is something that we codified in our original software development plan proposal. So
Got it.
right now we're on .NET 8. We are going to be migrating to .NET 10 exclusively imminently because sorry to burst anyone's bubble, but 3.0 ain't releasing this year. Or if it does, it'll be the. In fact, no, we're really late in the year. It's not releasing this year. That's not happening. .NET 10 is coming out in November, so yeah, we'll be hopping over to .NET 10 imminently.
All right, that's reason enough for me to say just leave it. Who cares? Respectfully.
Yep. It was originally intention to release Silk.NET 4.0 this year. But
We'll catch up. We'll catch up.
Yeah. Because the original logic was 3.0 would be .NET 8, 4.0 would be .NET 10, 5.0 would be .NET 12, but yeah, we haven't got there quite yet. So yeah, it looks like all the cleanups are fairly sensible. I mean, you just got rid of the static implementation bullet points as well, which makes it a lot nicer of a
So
read.
yeah, largely what happened is in a lot of these cases, I moved them to the table below where I was explicit about the multiplicity of to this table here. Yeah, a lot of them just moved into this table together.
I noticed there's some reallys in here.
Yeah, so you can see these are the ones that have like a scalar second argument. So just above those two, there's the ones that are member-wise. So there was something in the original proposal that said that there should be a version of these methods that takes a scalar as a second argument. But for ATAN, that doesn't make sense to me because ATAN is taking an x coordinate and a y coordinate and giving you the angle effectively. So if you have a vector of a vector containing your x coordinates or whatever, then would you ever just have a scalar containing your y coordinate to use against all those x coordinates and then get an arctan as a vector output? Like, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah. So I guess I guess the original goal in doing all this was that it was basically transparent to you whether you were operating on one number or many numbers. But obviously, yeah, it kind of falls apart at this point.
Even the member-wise implementation is a little strange because it
I
implies that you have a vector full of your x coordinates and a vector full of your y coordinates, and then you take an ATAN2 and get a vector of angles.
Yeah, in fact, the scalar one almost makes more sense, which is crazy because it kind of doesn't make that much sense in the first place.
I'm pretty sure that at one point I played with like a test of vector also implementing a number interface. So this might be why this exists.
Okay, fair enough. Do you
But
want it?
yeah, you can basically figure it out because it was really stupid but also very fun. But there's I don't think there's any practical.
Yeah, so Arctan specifically, I think I'd remove. The rest of them seem to make pretty good sense.
Are we
like? Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I'm just speaking. I just have a question. Go ahead.
No, I didn't have. You go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, like, are we supporting like implicit conversions of scalars and vectors? Because that could potentially make, depending on the implementation of some of these things, it could make like scalar overloads kind of redundant. Depending on, I guess, how good of a job the JIT does, right?
Yeah, I think that would be really non-obvious from a user perspective.
Okay.
Because if you imagine like a OpenGL function that uses one of these types, and you're passing the number 1 to that parameter, you have absolutely no idea, unless you have an ID that shows you that a implicit cast is happening there. You have absolutely no idea what that 1 means, because it taking that 1, broadcasting it to occupy 4 elements and creating a vector from it. That's a lot of things to happen in an implicit cast, at least logically speaking.
Yeah, totally.
So it would be a clever way to get around this for sure, but I think making it an implicit cast is, it will cause some problems.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. I just know, like, I've had a lot of good experiences and some not so good experiences using like Unity's shader, I'll say like shader inspired math library. And it does a lot of like really nice implicit casts that are very welcome a lot of the time. And it's only very rarely that it kind of bites me in the butt. But I'm also using Rider and it annotates literally everything for you.
Which, you're like, what cast comes in handy?
Basically like scalar to vector implicit casts.
What does it just fill the vector with that scalar, or what does it do?
Yeah.
Okay, we have a constructor that does that.
Well, I mean, that's probably enough and is more explicit, especially for more precise work. It's really just a quality of life thing, but I definitely see the case for the fact that it like obscures more than it like helps usability and whatnot. So I'm not like fixated on this as a feature. I was just inquiring.
It's just not obvious to me that would be what it does, like that it fills all the members with the same value, because alternatively it could just pad it with zeros, and both of those seem like completely valid options to me. So I think being more explicit makes the most sense to me personally. But if it really is improvement in ergonomics, then I think I mean, obviously I wouldn't fight over this, but I think
No,
I think the current plan with the constructor for that is probably my preference.
I think that's great. I think that's fine. If a use case truly reveals itself and users complain, then you could explore that. But
yeah, I agree. So yeah, that's a curious case of the reallys. ilog B member wise. Oh, okay, that's fine.
Actually,
the log 2 is an interesting.
Isn't the 8 and 2 one useful for like polar coordinates like that? I was trying to come up with an example, but like, isn't that kind of useful at least? At least the member-wise one?
I really don't know. I've never been a mathematician. That's why you've always owned maths, Kai.
I mean, it's just a weird way to store your to store multiple. It's just a weird way to do it, in my opinion. It makes sense to like atan to a single vector, like if you have the x and the y coordinate and you atan to those, and then along that plane, the xy plane or whatever, then the angle of the vector on that plane. But so like doing it for 2 components of one vector makes total sense to like figure out polar coordinates. But doing it between 2 vectors doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me at all. I don't like you'd be using the vectors for storage in a way that it's not really a Euclidean vector, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if we are moving to this is always Euclidean, then yeah, you're totally right.
But it's a good point, because the sort of main goal of this proposal is that we're not, or at least we are, but on the individual API level. So it's
totally valid to just use this for acceleration in my mind. I want to do 3 of the same operation, I throw it in there, and then it's fast, right? I think this is not unreasonable.
Yeah.
I just don't know why would we implement the version with the scalar at the end? That is wild to me.
Yeah, I mean, that one, I
think
agree.
It would never get called.
Very difficult to come up with an example.
I think it would never, ever be called.
Yeah.
Maybe like, I don't know, audio processing or something. Maybe they do something like that. I don't know.
If there is some weird esoteric use case, they will just use the constructor that broadcasts the elements.
Yeah, sure.
It doesn't make that much sense. We can just remove it. Like there are workarounds if you desperately need that.
It doesn't matter much, but maybe at least keep the memoize ones, right? For everything. So it's like at least you can do the acceleration.
Yeah,
I think that
yeah,
makes sense. I think that's reasonable.
yeah. Because I mean, yeah, a goal with making it match like the base number APIs is so that you can you can treat this as just a SIMD accelerated vector, and do these sort of multiple operations in one operation. Obviously, we would have to implement that acceleration, but yeah, I think it doesn't. I think the memberwise one doesn't hurt. I think the memberwise scalar one is a little confusing.
Yeah, sorry for interrupting again, but
No worries. So then we were talking about the log2 at the bottom, or not the bottom, but a little further down.
Oh yes,
So, yeah. So log2, as it says there, is already provided by I-binary number. So anything that supports a log2 via I-logarithmic functions already also supports it via I-binary number, at least for all the built-in types. Now, it's feasible somebody could want to come in with their own, I number type and use it with our vector class. And if they only implement I logarithmic functions instead of I binary number, then we wouldn't have this, overload for them. I think the main concern here is that, we get a naming conflict in our extension methods class. So we could have both if we have a separate extension method class for all of the individual types of operations, like the logarithmic functions extensions class. But the problem with that is it significantly hurts ergonomics, because instead of just saying something like vector3.log, you'd have to say like logarithmic functions vector3 or vector logarithmic functions.log or something like that. So I think the best solution is just to lose the I logarithmic function version of log2, which is why I proposed it that way.
How does this work in system?
So types are free to implement both interface, and they generally just implement both. And then if you're looking to grab a specific, interface, then it'll be there, implemented by probably the same underlying method. I don't know of anywhere in the system where I floating point is a constraint. Do you know in the library where the library is using like where it's using generic numbers other than in the base library? I mean, like where would we see a constraint that asks for this type?
I don't know. I don't think there is one. I'm just confused because I feel like this problem would have come up already, because it's the same problem. Like we inherit this problem from system in my mind. No, like they have basically introduced this function to interfaces, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now we just inherit that problem. I'm a little confused.
Yeah, so I
what
think
their solution was, I guess.
Yeah, so I logarithmic function. I'd imagine from their perspective in implementing these types, it will just be an explicit implementation. Because what is derived from I logarithmic functions? Double, half, single, and float, and that's it. So the integer types don't implement I logarithmic functions, and the floating point types don't implement I binary integer. So I don't think they would have ever come across this conflict.
Right, but so the way they do it is they have an explicit, like they have a like float dot log2, for example, and then
Yes.
the explicit implementation calls into that, or how do you do it?
Yeah, absolutely. So int.log2 will work. Float.log2 will work. It's completely invisible to the user that is a interface. And as for whether any code will be constrained on this, I genuinely don't think enough code that generalizes over generic maths actually exists for us to find out. I mean, we can certainly have a look at APIs of .NET. I think that has like a tracker. but that doesn't tell us.
So basically right now, if you ask for, I'm trying to test this while I talk. Right now, if you write a function that requests both ibinary and logarithmic, then it doesn't work, really?
I think if you use log in that method, it's going to tell you that it's an ambiguous reference, and you have to cast it to one or the other first.
That's super confusing, I have to say.
I could try it. Sorry, but I think what ends up happening is it says, that's an ambiguous reference, and you need to constrain your type. But yeah, I'll try it real fast.
I'm also trying to, but so Charlotte is fighting me. Sorry.
So grep.app doesn't have any hits for iLogarithmic functions being used as a generic type constraint, other than like the obvious cases, like in system.numerics tensor, where they have a log function that is constrained on iLogarithmic functions.
But then only one or the other.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point actually. But then again, it's a tensor, so like I guess the stance was taken there that you don't care about integer tensors.
I guess it makes sense.
I'll tell a lie. They've got some methods constrained on ibinary integer. So yeah, it seems they've been preferring iLogarithmic functions, using this a sample size of 1 in the BCL, and there is no other code that I can find on the internet that will give us a better precedent. But well, in fact, I suppose I could do the same search that I've just done, but with an ibinary integer. But it's interesting that that system numerics tensor preferred having their log2 extension method be constrained on iLogarithmic functions instead of ibinary integer.
Okay, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter much. I just tried it, and you do actually get an ambiguous error, which is super confusing. Like, why did they do it this way? But I also don't want to take up more of your time in trying to figure out why they did it this way. So I guess this is fine. I'm just always very surprised if I inherit problems from system, because usually the interfaces are designed very well. So I don't know. That's probably the reason for this.
Yeah, so I think yeah, if you just constrain it to ibinary floating point IEEE 754, it gives you the ambiguous reference, because that does it implements both. So if you constrain it to binary floating point, it already has that issue.
That's so weird.
Interesting.
I mean,
and yeah, like I was saying, like double and float, they implement ibinary floating point, which implements the ibinary number version of it. So that's since that one is used on all of the built-in types that need it, that's the one I chose to keep in the proposal.
Yeah, I mean, this makes sense, but it's also super confusing. But yeah, I think your solution is good.
Yeah, I really don't mind. I do think it is interesting that the system UX tensor constrains for its log2 method on iLogarithmic functions. So I do wonder whether we should flip it. But we'd probably have to look into it a bit more, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. As for what call we want to make here today, this was part of the original proposal, wasn't it? This log2. So I'm happy to keep the current decision for now. I mean, I will check the history to make sure it was originally there.
Bring it out.
The okay, so I can see why that so much cleanup has been done because it is non-obvious um what the original proposal said. But yeah, the original proposal said that log2 was defined for the binary integers. I say we just stick with that. If we want to argue about it more, we could do so in the future.
I mean, if has anyone tried this? I'm not up to date with C Sharp 10 or whatever the version is.
I think we're on 14.
You define an extension. I'm old. I feel old at this point. If you define an extension property and you define it like for binary number and then also for logarithmic, does it like break or?
You have to, like, if you try to call t.log2, it won't work, but you can call binary number of t.log2 and it works fine. You just have to be explicit about which one you're calling.
So if we do this on the vectors, it will not work. What are you saying?
Well, what we're doing is we'll just have a log2 method and it chooses for you which one it calls internally, and we're choosing binary number. So we'll hide that from the user.
We could explicitly...
But are you not doing it as an extension?
This is an extension.
But then you can have two, right? One with where ti binary number and one with where ti logarithmic. No,
not with the same name and same arguments.
You should be able to well, actually, maybe I could be wrong, but can't you just like maybe not with extensions, but typically you can explicitly mention like what interface you're implementing with a method just by basically it doesn't have an access modifier, and you just do like return type, interface type dot method name arguments. That's the implementation. And it could point right back to just the normal public log2 function, but then that particular interface knows that that's the method that it's mapped to. Do you know what I'm talking about? Is that possible?
We would have to have two identical methods basically, with the only difference between them being the type constraint, and that is not allowed for overloads. Overloads have to vary by more than just the type constraint.
Yes, but I guess I'm not talking about overloads. I'm talking about explicit interface implementation, which again might not apply for extension methods.
Yeah, so we're not actually implementing these interfaces because C# isn't that smart yet. You can't have extension implementations of these on other types, foreign types, which I guess from an extension method perspective is what we're doing here. It's not like Rust's traits where you can implement it on your types and other people's types. There are promises that we will get there eventually, but for the initial release of the extension feature, it's not present today.
Got it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean the log2, I think we can also just toss it because the original implementation is also not really viable, to be honest. I'm expecting that no one has ever used this.
Really?
I mean, if you use this for anything other than float and double, it will break spectacularly.
Oh yeah. So I think this would really.
It's dependent on some Go.
Oh my sweet Jesus!
Yeah, it will break it'll be very pretty if it breaks. Once it breaks. Yeah, I think we can also just toss it because this. I mean,
this is
if it works, if it keeps working for a float and double, it doesn't matter in my mind. So yeah, back to my original point. I think
as it stands, we're not going to be reusing the 2.0 implementations of things.
Yeah, great. Please don't.
Hey, you got pretty creative in some places.
There's a couple of things that I don't want to reinvent the wheel on, specifically around matrices, and the one that I'm not sure I'm qualified to write or rewrite is like extracting from from a matrix trying to go back to the parameters that would have defined it, that algorithm is pretty wild, and I don't want to try to re-implement that. So at least that's probably going to come over.
I'm pretty sure if you want to port something, or basically for all the functions, I would just highly recommend just looking at the implementation that .NET has, because it's also open source, right? And that is basically what I did for most of this. I have not studied mathematics, so for most of these algorithms, I copied both the test and the implementation from the office, like from the runtime, and this mostly worked. I think once or twice people complained, but yeah. So I would highly recommend. I think they've also updated the algorithm like a few times. So if you're trying to port something, then I recommend just going there, because I think their tests are originally sourced from like the RFCs and stuff. So I think it's
okay.
Yeah,
I'll take that. I'll take that in mind.
Cool. Yeah, that's fine. Oh, nice. And we've still got the system.runtime.intrinsics methods. Cool. And then yeah, remove. Fine. Yeah, I think it's I think it's good that we've gone back to the single type hierarchy, to be honest, because it is one of a decision that I was very much against, but at the same time, we didn't have a better alternative when this proposal was originally written. And yeah, it's mostly just looks like it's typo fixes from here.
Yeah, consolidating the type hierarchy.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm happy if everyone else is happy.
I'm happy.
I'm pretty happy.
Cool. I wrote some notes, but I might have to watch the VOD back to write some more notes. So I'll put what I've got there.
Great. Was there something else we were going to remove? There was
the
section
instance extension methods as well.
I mean, actually, I think it's unrelated. It's just like a general comment. It might be interesting to look at expanding this feature, because I think with this approach you can actually enable more use cases. Things like, you could do like division with how do you say in English? Remainder, I think, on like the vectors, for example, which would be really nice for like integer-based games, right? But yeah.
I think we do
So
we do have divrem in there already.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, this is the old version of the proposal, but I have seen it in the new one. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's a divrem method.
Very nice. I mean, this is really awesome.
Cool. Thank you. I'm glad. I'm glad that this is the meeting you turned up to. It's good to know that we're not completely ruining your work.
Yeah, I mean,
Master's your baby. I don't want to trample all over it.
yeah, no, I'm happy if it just gets better and up to date with C#.
Yeah, cool.
We did basically all of this when none of this was possible at all again. So
there was so much of 2.0 that we just did at all costs because no one else had done it before. Like look at source generators.
Yeah, I mean, we were basically the first consumer, and I think I'm pretty sure we also wrote I think there was a test generic mass implementation before the current one where we wrote the vector implementation.
Yes.
Yeah, this was all very experimental.
Yeah, we were working on generic SIMD quite early on. I remember. Yeah. Where did all that time go?
Yeah, I feel so old now. Like, back in the day when I was still young.
Nice.
Oh, right. Right, so do we have any more comments on this proposal?
Oh, no.
Crickets, beautiful. Right. So I shall go over to the next one. So this next one was mainly to summarize some thoughts that I've had for a while. It's so obviously 3.0 complete create API break. Fine, wouldn't have it any other way because there's so many problems with the existing API, like the fact that it makes any IDE that touches it scream. So we need to break the API. There is no negotiation about that. It was always been the intention from the start. However, we do have the problem that there is a lot of code out there now that uses Silk.net 2.0, and as it currently stands, we don't have a migration story. And the main thing that I've been worried about are things like Uno Platform. Uno Platform pull in Silk.net directly, which means all of their users are pulling in Silk.net as well. If there is a user of Uno Platform that wants to use Silk.net directly, they will either be stuck using Silk.net 2, assuming that Uno Platform doesn't migrate, which, considering it's completely breaking, they are unlikely to migrate for some time. If Uno Platform don't migrate, and the users will be stuck on 2.0, or they will try to move to 3.0 and their code will be able to use the 3.0 API, but the moment they try to run it, they get loads of missing method exceptions, loads of missing type exceptions or whatever, because Uno Platform was built against 2.0. So this proposal is mainly covering some ideas that I had on how to solve this. The gist of it is that I want us to explore having ABI compatibility, but not API compatibility. So it goes into a design of how we'd actually implement that. It's actually a very, very small proposal. But yeah, essentially the 3.0 API, that is all that is exposed in the reference assembly. But then in the actual like non-reference assembly, we will add the existing 2.x compatible methods, so that code compiled against 2.0 continues to run fine when like a downstream consumer, for instance, wants to use a 3.0 package. There are some like specific caveats to that makes it so that IDEs don't get extremely confused. For instance, like we will have to expose all of the 2.x type names. Not the members, which is good, but we'll have to expose all the type names so that IDEs can resolve signatures when they're doing a code completion and whatever. But yeah, essentially the gist of it is that we will have something ideally generated that will generate 2.x methods in terms of the 3.0 API, and only includes those methods and members, whatever, in the non-reference assembly, so that IDEs that consume the reference assembly will never see them. So you don't have IDEs screaming because you've got now a million overloads because you pulled in the 2.x ones as well as the 3.0 ones, and you still got code being able to run against 3.0. Because the last thing I want to do is like, I did this in the introduction section, is that it would cause significant reputational harm. I think if we did go ahead and break it like this, I think that's it. I mean, Avalonia, Kai will probably attest to this as well, because this is a discussion we had early on 2.0's development. But Avalonia explicitly decided against consuming Silk.net and instead wrote their own minimal set of bindings for OpenGLES, because they were concerned about this exact thing. And the last thing I want to do is give weight to those concerns, and then no other consumer like Uno Platform, like making a platform like Uno Platform is, like Avalonia is, have those sorts of consumers never touch Silk.net again. That is my main concern.
Yeah, this is a bit over my head, but I definitely am a fan of being able to maintain something like that.
It also the good thing about this proposal as well is it also gives us a migration story for free. So you can have one CS
Yeah.
Proj that references the 2.0 package, and you can have one CS Proj that references the 3.0 package, but also your other project that is compiled against 2.0. In the your migration story is essentially you just start slowly moving code over from one project to the other project.
Now, I guess my leading question is, would this ABI compatibility strategy be transferable to Silk.NET 4, Silk.NET 5, up into infinity that we will ultimately reach sometime
Yeah,
next year?
do you intend to have the 2.0 forever, the 2.0 bindings forever, or do you just want to go back one major version? Or yeah, what's the...
It's a good question. I really don't want to rewrite the entire library from scratch again, if I'm completely honest. So I think this is probably the only time.
Interesting.
This is probably the only time that is going to be a problem, I think. But if not, then I don't know. I'll eat my hat
Cross
or
that
something.
bridge.
Yeah. But we really shouldn't be in this situation again. But if we are, then I don't know. Something's gone seriously wrong. We'll cross that bridge when it comes to it.
So this is just kind of meant to be a one and done. Do you intend on like dropping the ABI compatibility like later on? Say like we're not regenerating ABI compatibility for Silk 4 to Silk 3 or whatever, God forbid. Would the hypothetical Silk 4 still carry the 2.0 bindings?
It's a very good question. Obviously, in the extreme case, you've got .NET, where even though it's on its 10th major version, it has never broken an API. Well, other than the stuff that was in .NET Framework that didn't make it into .NET Core, but for the most part,
Yeah.
it is most of the APIs from like, I don't know, was it 2000 or whatever that it came out, 2001, are still there. So that's the extreme case. The So 1.0 to 2.0 was a lot more breaking. It was breaking, but we didn't have that many users back then. We've got a lot more users now, so we kind of do have to tread a little bit more carefully. But at the same time, we still want to be able to achieve the breaks that we want to make. I really don't think that we're going to change it. If we do change our API completely again, then I would say we evaluate it then. Really, these sort of decisions have to be made based on ecosystem adoption. If we get to a point where we're developing 4.0 and it turns out most of the code out there is written against 3.0 now instead of 2.0, then I think, okay, it's probably safe to drop the ABI 2 compatibility. Because it's basically just minimizing the amount of fires that we light.
Makes sense. But yeah, I think this is very ambitious. I don't exactly know how it works. But if this seems tenable, like I'm all for it. It seems like a really fantastic way to just not kill everybody who's used it and wants to continue developing into .NET's future.
Yeah. So the proposed design section sort of goes over how it'll work. You do have to sort of read it very slowly, but essentially it's
Of course.
you've got so Roslyn can already generate reference assembly. We're not doing that today because we've never needed the need for it. But it can generate a reference assembly, which is basically just all of the API signatures, but with throw null as the implementation body. The idea is that
That's what that is.
yeah, exactly. So that essentially it's a special assembly that exists for no other reason than to give you a set of APIs that the IDE can assume is there. This is how .NET Standard works: is that it's basically just a reference assembly with a bunch of type forwards to either MS Core Lib or System Private Core Lib or whatever. So it's quite a clever thing. And then we go ahead and make it more cleverer by so what I'm proposing here is that so we'll obviously have our generated stuff that will generate 2.x APIs from it that are implemented in terms of 3.0 code. I'd imagine this would probably be using like the build tools output or something. There will be some manually written code, like Silk.net core. We will have to manually write some compatibility layers in. But for the most part, it will be auto-generated for things like the bindings. So the idea is that all of that, for the sanity of the maintainers, all that code that is generated and or handwritten will be behind a preprocessor guard. And when we're building that, when we're building the library in ABI compatible mode, which we'll do on release, we will. So we'll first of all include all that code. Roslyn will compile it, include it in the reference assembly and the implementation assembly. And then the idea is that we have a sort of IL rewriter or like post processing step that will identify all of the all of the APIs that only exist for ABI compatibility and strip them out of the reference assembly. It'll keep them in the like implementation assembly, but not the reference assembly, so that they are invisible to the consumer, but they are still there when you actually go to run the thing. So that's essentially how it's work. How I think it's going to work. It's very much an idea that I've had for some time. I've just never articulated it before, and it feels like, in the spirit of the proposal process, I do need to articulate it. In the case that it's not me that implements it.
Is this? I've definitely interacted with this sort of style of forwarded methods and things like that, but not. I've never really implemented myself. Is this like documented like as a as a feature of the framework, or like
So the
like how did you
reference assemblies are
yeah okay
hasn't been updated since 2021, but yeah, it's it is documented.
So I mean, all the steps that you have listed there in your
So
all of
no,
this.
these aren't standard. The IL rewriting, that is a bespoke thing that we need to add to actually add that post processing into the reference assembly. But the existence of reference assemblies and how they work, what they do, that is documented.
But like this ABI compatibility, ABI2 compatibility guard and things like that, is that a standard?
No, it's all of that other than the reference assemblies is new stuff. I mean, the preprocessor guards are also documented functionality in the C# thing, so you could do your hashtag if and whatever. But this shadow attribute, I mean, shadow is just a placeholder name that I put there. It can be more descriptive or whatever. It's basically just an attribute that is recognized by that IL post processor that says, "Hey, I exist for ABI compatibility only." It could maybe be useful outside of Silk.net once we do develop it, but I don't think anyone else outside of Silk.net has developed this before. Most of the times when projects care about ABI compatibility, they also care about API compatibility. We're extremely unusual in the sense that we actively want to break our entire API, but still want compiled code to work against our assemblies like that. You usually don't get that pick and mix of which compatibility you care about, which probably explains why something like this doesn't exist yet.
Just a bunch of kooky and crazy folks out here.
Yeah, it pretty much describes Silk. What's that meme in Team Talk? There's a lot of memes in Team Talk. This one.
Wait, where is it?
I've got it on my shared screen. The one where we're squinting at the meter that's halfway between mental illness and secret esoteric knowledge.
It's just showing the
I just see the proposal, but I see it. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, the meme timing is all off.
The stream can see it. I just noticed Guy disappeared.
Happens to the best of us.
Oh yeah, fair enough. Right, yeah. So back to the proposal. Yeah, that's the proposal. It's basically that paragraph and then a bunch of words around how it's intended to be used.
I mean, how deep is this intended to go? Is it intended to cover like everything in the the main Silk 2 branch, like every layer, like for all of the native libraries and whatnot, or is it just kind of focused on HLUs, or is it?
So this would be focused on well, it would be as much as possible. I think we would track. Well, my intention is to track the AB how ABI compatible we are as we develop it. Obviously, Preview 1 isn't going to release with any ABI compatibility because I don't have time to develop this. Um, for bindings, it's relatively easy because they're all generated by build tools. So we have a lovely JSON model that we can use to generate code that is built in terms of 3.0 code. For the HLUs, that would be a lot more work intensive, and yeah, but at the same time, there is still a lot of code written against the 2.0 HLUs that
Yeah,
pretty much all the cases we care about are using the 2.0 HLUs, so it will probably extend to the HLUs as well.
I imagined as much. I was going to say if we had to pick one or the other, it would probably be HLUs by my estimation.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But the intention is definitely to have both, but this proposal doesn't say it needs to, every single API needs to be API compatible. It's more proposing a way to do it, um, and why it's a concern to us, so that people can carry that forward into sort of the next development. It is my intention to develop this, but if I get hit by a bus or something, um, it's important that this proposal is there so that they know what was going through my head.
100%. The bus could come for anybody. Might have just come for Kai.
Yeah. That's
But
a good unexpected turn.
but yeah, this is very cool at the very least. Like just I think just reading this for obviously myself, perhaps many others, is quite illuminating in the fact that this can be done in a way that is almost sane.
Yeah, I was gonna say, have you tried this?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
But I'm pretty convinced it'll
Ship
work.
it.
Right.
I mean, the original 3.0 proposal, we realized that when we went to implement it, that hang on, we need to completely 3.0 input proposal, that is, if I left out that word, don't remember whether I included it. When we came to implement that, we realized, hey, this is a really crap design. So it could turn out that the same fate, that this proposal meets the same fate. I'm not afraid for that to happen. It's just I really want to have it documented that we are thinking about this, and that there are concepts of a plan in place to to not alienate those users. If it does turn out that we have to alienate those users, then fine. I guess we got to do that. I really feel like we do need to break the API in 3.0 because 2.0 is completely untenable. It's just figuring out what the long-term story will be there if we do that, because it will be like a Python 2, Python 3 story all over again.
I think this particular proposal kind of, I don't know, I'm all for it. It sounds like the difference between like something you can trust and something you can't, really fundamentally, for anything that's like larger than like a 6-person team. Um, you know, if you're convinced, I'm convinced. Again, I'm deferring to expertise. As someone, you have clearly at least explored this deeply, philosophically and technically, if not literally implemented it. I think it's worth the effort, even if it takes a long time. But that being said, uh, you have my condolences for your efforts.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's something that I've done all the technical research to see whether it's feasible. It could be that, I don't know, I implement this and then I realize Rider goes completely rogue and just ignores the reference assembly. It's not meant to do that by all the documentation that I've read, but it's entirely possible. But yeah, as far as I'm aware, I haven't seen any technical documentation that that indicates that this won't work.
Great. I'm sold.
Awesome. Right, I have got 2 notes on our discussion, basically to just bear in mind if we ever intend to drop API compatibility. And I think the conclusion from our discussion was we'll just keep an eye on where the third-party code is.
Yeah.
If everyone's on 3.0, then great. We'll burn 2.0. We'll finally put 2.x out of its misery.
I guess one thing I'd like to add to this short list would just be like at the point where the generator is being worked on and whatnot, actually defining the scope of ABI compatibility support for 2.0 would probably take a weight off your shoulders, or at least tell you precisely how much weight is on your shoulders. Because you could kind of be up against a lot. I don't know how different like the actual bindings are. I know that that's like straightforward enough, but like, are there like underutilized areas of the HLUs too that could like then maybe like the initial release of 3.0 can do without this particular thing. I mean, it's totally up to you as to what you prioritize, like just, shipping or just fully baking out the back compat.
Is there any concern that the 2.0, that any of the 2.0 methods or approaches can't be represented in the 3.0 code? Like, if there was like a multiplicity change in an API, that can oftentimes cause it to just not work very well. You know what I'm getting at?
So the main reason that we've done our magic pointer ref duck types is because of the overload problem, in that we wanted to cater for anything that the user might want to pass into a given parameter. And the way that 2.x did that was it generated all permutations of possible overloads. This was an overcorrection on my part because people in 1.x complained that they felt like they were using pointers a lot. So I was like, okay, I'll give you everything. And this has resulted in 3 to the power of 11 overloads being generated for a single function before. So, yeah, there's
That's a lot.
Yeah,
Wow.
we added an exception for those particular functions. But it has happened before.
That's crazy.
but
I'm
I
about
mean-
to pull out the calculator.
Yeah. But we do have a function in Asimp that I think has 150 overloads. Like it's just something that went unchecked, and because it's now part of the API, part of the 2.x API, we either keep those 150 overloads for a single function or we break. And I think, given how terrible the IDE experience is with 2.x at the moment, we just have to break. If you've tried to use any of our com bindings, like DirectX, in 2.x, it's like, yeah, we did some usability improvements in 2.17, 2.18, that makes it so you can actually feasibly write code that compiles and looks nice. It's just the experience of writing it is hellish because the IDEs are screaming because there's so many APIs it has to keep track of.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's the main reason why we haven't even gone down the path of trying to represent 2.x's API style in 3.0. But and is the main reason
sense.
that 3.0 is a hard break in the first place.
We live and we learn.
Indeed, we do.
Reference assemblies, huh? That's a very cool thing to have learned about today. That sounds like ridiculously powerful.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So another case where I've used them before was where I've had a reference assembly that defines an API of like a graphics abstraction or something. And then I had runtime specific compilation. I compiled the project. I had runtime specific projects that, for example, had a DirectX backend or a Vulkan backend. Compiled those and bundled the compiled artifacts into the same NuGet package. So you've got your ref assembly and then your runtime specific assemblies that are automatically resolved as appropriate, and it just works.
That's awesome. That's very powerful. God
Yeah.
help the person making a reference assembly that works with Vulkan and DirectX, but that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a really powerful feature. It's one that's it's one that most people never have a reason to learn about, but it's what made clever things like .NET Standard possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you'll run into it debugging. Sometimes you'll like in a couple of different you step into something and you'll notice that the assembly path has changed. Sometimes you run into it with reflection, and but yeah, I never had a chance to actually try to implement it. It's pretty cool, pretty rad.
Yeah, I've definitely seen the reference assemblies and the reflection APIs. Never bothered. I was like, that is something I don't know. That's okay. I'll throw that into my pile of assemblies that I'm for-eaching through until the rest of time, but I don't really know. Yeah, awesome.
Cool.
I have no more notes.
Everyone happy?
Yeah.
I approve for what my vote's worth. I don't know. I definitely approve.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to Kieran and he didn't seem to have any notes on it. It's one of these things is that we'll probably come up with all the questions that we could think of when we actually go to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm calling it.
Makes sense to me. Yo, it's done.
Cool. Right. So, trying to think of what else we would do, because there was something that I was discussing over the past few weeks that I was thinking about writing a proposal for, but I don't remember what it was. Because we've had a lot of discussions recently, which is good. I love discussions. Yeah, I don't remember what it was though. Sorry. I
I don't know.
suppose did you have any? Actually, John, let's go with you first. So have you got everything you need to work on? Well, is it your intention to work on maths in the foreseeable future? I guess I should start with that.
Yeah. The PR that is open wasn't opened by me, so it's a little bit challenging for me to update it. I might just reopen the maths PR.
Yeah.
So
I didn't even realize we had one. Oh yeah. Uh. Okay. Uh.
so I've been pinging the owner of this PR to get my changes added to it relatively frequently. The current state of this PR is that it basically it builds and it's relatively a complete version of the changes I proposed. There was a couple of places, a couple of things that are missing around on the matrix side of things. Because this is so close to source compatible with the original, I was actually able to run some of my projects that depend on Silk against this maths library, and yeah, it worked. It was like because of the source compatibility. So it basically it's pretty close to. I wouldn't say it's like done, right? But yeah, my intention is to get it there. But it's pretty close already. There's just a few matrix implementation things that need to be updated.
Awesome. So I guess what we could do is review this PR as is, and just accept that this is a Delta thing. It's preview one. It's not going to be complete. Yada yada yada. And then because that way Tweety still gets still gets credit for the work that they did. I'm not sure how much work that they did, but they did some of it at least.
Yeah, of course, my branch includes their changes, and I'm not going to like evict their changes from the branch. So I don't know how. Yeah, that works. But yeah, I'm also okay to keep pinging Tweety and say, hey, we approved the new changes and we need to update the title of not the title, sorry, but the checkboxes in the PR have. Yeah, basically, I've been sending changes as a pull request to their branch, which then automatically gets included in this PR.
Yeah, I think if we update the I mean I have the ability to update them if you know what they are, what the current state is.
Yeah, 2D instead of 2F and I.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. You check them off. Yeah, they're pretty much the vector types are pretty much done.
Awesome.
Oh, that's 240s. I don't think you need.
Yeah. What did I do there? Yeah. I forgot that there's no for some reason my brain assumed that there was a one-dimensional vector, but that's not a vector. Right. And then the matrices you said.
Yeah, likewise, their name gets updated. They're pretty much implemented, but there's a few. Like I said, there's a few methods. Oops.
Yeah. There's a few methods
that are still to be created on. I think things like the create methods from various perspective or from orthogonal or whatever. Most of those create methods are still not done. So I'm not sure which matrix type those are on. Just off the top of my head. What is it? 3x4, I think maybe. But anyway.
Okay, that's fine. I guess if you if you put a comment on here that says what's outstanding, and I can just because I'm happy to merge this as work in progress, so that you're able to have a better contribution experience or divvy the work. I don't know how much of this Tweety is doing themselves, but if you are still dividing the work up, then we could just do that on the main develop branch as individual pull requests rather than having one mega pull request.
Yeah, that sounds fine. So we can try to get this, merged in and then create a new one. That sounds good.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, but you can figure out the logistics with Tweety, but then if you get to the point where this is ready to review in its current state, then I will review it and hopefully get it in the develop branch soon.
Sounds good.
Now, I'm going to ask the question that is the difference between this meeting ending in 5 minutes or ending in 5 hours. But, Dom, did you have anything you wanted to talk about input with? Dom? I think Dom died. Okay, well, it looks like we're leaning on the 5 minute side of things instead of the 5 hours side of things.
All right.
Honestly, if you looked at any of the recent Coffee and Codes, most of them were about input. And it's literally just me and Dom talking about the most like down in the weeds, obscure things, like until we just don't have anything left to discuss about. I think we had I think it was like 3 hours on. It wasn't 3 hours, but it's like maybe an hour and a half on whether axes should be a float or a double. Yeah. All right, I will call it there. Thank you for coming, everyone. Thank you, everyone who was watching. I didn't see any questions pop through in the chat, but if anyone does have any questions, you know where our Discord is. Yeah. I don't foresee us having any proposals in the short term. So I guess it's just full steam ahead on 3.0. I think. As much as OpenAL and input are the only things on the tracker for preview 1. If we get
Dom
things,
just got back.
Dom.
Hello. I
Hello.
picked a bad time to pee, didn't I?
I was basically I was basically saying, I was going to ask the question that is the difference between this meeting ending in 5 minutes or 5 hours. And it's, did you
Oh,
have anything input related you wanted to talk about?
not that I think is immediately necessary. I have enough work to get through before bringing up questions or anything that. I guess the only question was the one I floated earlier, right? Like, what's the extent of our text support outside of the context of a UI framework?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so in 2.0, they were defined on the keyboard itself, the text input thing. And I believe that's the same in 3.0.
Yes, and so I'm implementing that, and I'm just running up against the fact that SDL only really supports text input in the context of its built-in text input from its windowing.
Yeah, so
And from
so that I am fine with. What 2.0 did is it silently originally input depended on windowing. That's not the case for 3.0, but we still have access to the window handle in the SDL backend. So I'm fine with it silently using the window handle where it's necessary. It's the reason why you create the reference implementation from a iNative window, if I remember correctly. Um, it, it is intended that the default implementation of this is tied to a specific window because that's the reference implementation of input matches the reference implementation of windowing. It is possible that there is another implementation in the future that does the text input without that, because I mean, you could implement the text input entirely in C sharp, like not interacting with the Windows system at all, by just having you call the begin text method or whatever we call it now, start recording all the key presses and mapping those in,
yeah.
doing all the scan code mapping, your modifier key mapping into actual characters, and then keep recording that until end input. Like you could do that all in managed land without ever interacting with
I
native
basically
beyond.
did. I I basically started that. I'm not going to say like this is like going to be some state of the art thing, but personally for me, the biggest draw for SDL in particular or something like this is its input system. Like I would want to use SDL's input system even if I'm like using Uno as a windowing framework or, who knows. And so I thought that could be valuable. Uno, of course, has their own text controls where you would sooner get it from. So I ended up kind of abstracting out some interfaces or whatever, or a class for like a text recorder class. I'm not entirely sure how that would properly fit into a front end agnostic thing. Right now, it's literally just use SDL's window or use whatever I happen to hack together in a few hours. And then later we'll test and probably smash my head against, and then it'll be usable in English only.
Yeah.
But as a fallback, like, I don't know, there's not a lot of resources available for whatever reason for cross-platform key press to character support. That is not really in the scope of .NET Core. So yeah, I'm doing my best, but I kind of have a basic thing like that, and I'm not one to write unit tests, but if I were to write some, I would write some where I would make sure that the output as represented by SDL's text input functions or whatever matches that of, the stuff that I hacked together. And then that would be the extent, more or less, of that fallback.
Yeah, I think there is definitely room for something like this to exist in sort of that input, like in a back-end agnostic way in the future, like i.e. to take raw key presses
Yeah.
and convert them into text input. There is room for that to exist in the future. For now, I just do it in the obvious way where you just use the window handle based APIs in SDL.
Yeah.
I do want to have a mechanism for using SDL input without a window, i.e., getting the global input at some point. It's just that's not a goal for the initial implementation, and that's why it's not in the proposal at the moment. I mean, I said this when we started the development of this iteration of 3.0 is that the 3.0 that ships is the one that gets made. The last iteration of 3.0
Yes.
had we sort of let all of our engineering curiosities run wild with ourselves, and we ended up over engineering a generator to be very, 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 very clever. But we'd be working on that for a while if we carried down that path. So yeah, the focus of this iteration of 3.0 is to just get something out there, but at the same time, there are things that I do know that I want, like being able to use SDL input without a window. So yeah, it's something. It's something to keep in the back pocket somewhere. I don't know where you'd keep that in terms of like code wise, repository wise, or whatever, but it's something that we probably should revisit in the future.
Okay, that sounds good. And I won't. I'll leave it as a little. I'll call it an Easter egg for those that are intent enough to try it. Something will happen.
Yes. Yeah. Cool. Cool. So you're cracking on with input. I'm cracking on with OpenAL. I guess John's going to crack on with maths.
Yep.
Again, no timelines on any of this. Other than input, I do want input soon, but that's only because it's like
Yeah.
I don't know how much
It's
longer.
big.
I don't know how much longer the OpenAL bindings are going to take me. But after that, it is the last big thing left for preview 1 that is tracked. I think if you're still showing signs of life on input, then I will probably go help Kieran with the Windows SDK bindings. But yeah, the input will be the top priority after OpenAL is done.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm at the point right now, I think, in input where I'm getting, I think about now I'm moving on to pointers. I've kind of done everything before that, and now it's time to bite the bullet. So hopefully that ends up just actually being really easy and simple. There's definitely less buttons to worry about, which is nice.
Yes. Yeah, it was. I really hope, given how long we've talked about pointers, that it does turn out to be fairly okay to implement. But I know that we had
Yeah.
loads of weird edge cases with mice and stuff that I'm sure will pop up again. But hey, I'm happy to have a coffee and code whenever.
Yippee.
Cool.
Well, we got this, fam. Good chat.
Yeah, thank you both for coming. I've already thanked the viewers for coming, so I'm not going to thank you again. Sorry. Yeah. Let me know if you need anything or have any further comments that we haven't covered in this meeting. Likewise, if there's anything that if there are any more proposals or anything that we haven't, anything that's blocking your respective implementation work, then just let me know. Other than that,
All right,
go
cool.
3.0.
LFG.
All right. Thanks, folks.
All right. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.